everyone and welcome back to my channel. My name is Jade and today I am doing a wrap up and TBR with you guys. So these are the books that I read in February. I did not read in January. Very busy, started school. Well, actually, I don't know how I didn't read in January because I had break, but I really didn't get a lot of reading done. But February I started school, so I've been really busy, but I have actually read quite a few books. I'm going to start with the audiobooks that I listened to this month. The first one is The Bird in the Blade by, I believe it's by Megan Bannon. This book is about, I don't even know how to describe it. It's kind of like a Milan retelling. It's a girl who is a servant for a big family, and she ends up disguising herself as a guy and going away with a small part of the family that's left after a war comes to their country. And it's kind of just like trying to survive and figure out how they're going to bring their people back together, but it also has a really, really good love story in it. So it's pretty good. It's a fun read. I would say it's a 3.5 out of 5 stars. I enjoyed it, but it was more of a love story. That's the thing. It's like it wasn't an action adventure at all. It was just a love story fantasy book, which I think is good. It's just not my favorite genre. The next book I read, though, listen to, is The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid, and that book was amazing. 5 out of 5 stars. I read it. I listened to it in one day. I didn't stop. It was so good. It's about an author who is, well, a journalist who is retelling us the story of a really famous actress's life. She kind of went off the grid and hasn't done any pieces about her life, but it was a very controversial life that she lived because it was in the early and middle 1900s that she was an actress too, and she had 7 husbands. So it's just about her and her career, and it really involves her 7 husbands. It's just a really, really good book. It just kind of shows you what it's like to be famous and how hard, especially at that time, it was for her to get to be her true self and to live her life. So it was really cool to see that. And then there's some modern day issues as well, because it goes back and forth in the past and present as she's telling her story. It was so amazing. You've heard all about it on BookTube. It's good for a reason. The next book I listened to was Furthermore by Tahara Mafi, and I loved this book. You guys, this book was amazing. It's a middle grade, I believe. It is a middle grade, but the world is like nothing I've ever seen before. It's so mystical and dark and scary and beautiful and colorful at the same time, and it's really amazing. I found that middle grade books, for some reason, have a lot more intricate magical worlds because they can focus more on the fun part of magic and like building the world instead of like the big themes of like taking down governments and stuff like that. So it's really interesting. I loved the book. It's also a 5 out of 5 stars. And let's go with the other books I finished. I actually finished 6 books. That's not bad. The next book I have is The Absolutely True Diary of a Part-Time Indian by Sherman Alexie. This book is about a boy who lives on an Indian reservation, and he's always been the lowest of the low on the reservation because he has a brain disease. He just has a very sensitive brain because he has a lot of fluid in it that shouldn't be there. But he decides that he wants to change his life and be able to live it himself instead of ending up like everyone else on the reservation. So he ends up attending a school outside of the reservation, and everyone in his community kind of puts him down for it. And also at the same time, when he's at school, he has to act different to fit in with all of the white students. So he really feels like he doesn't fit in anywhere, but he's doing it because he thinks it's what's best for his future. And it just shows you a lot about what it's like to live on a reservation and the problems that Native Americans have, and it's a really moving book. All of his books are really, really good and show really sad but important aspects of life. The next book I read was The Virgin's Lover by Philippa Gregory. This book slightly bothered me because I read The Other Berlin Girl by her and I loved it and I could not put it down. And I don't know if it's because I'm in a reading slump, but I had a really hard time getting through this book. Even though it was decent, it just wasn't that great. I would say it's like a 3 out of 5 stars, maybe a 2 out of 5. It was really awesome because I loved to learn about the history around it. It was cool to learn about, this is about Queen Elizabeth and Sir Robert Dudley. So it's just about Queen Elizabeth, the Protestant queen, but also it revolves around her love affair with Robert Dudley. And it was cool to learn the history part. I just didn't find the other aspects of the book to be that interesting, honestly. But, you know, I got through it. The next book I finished was for class, so was The Absolute True Diary of a Part-Time Indian, but this one is the Kumahula Roots and Branches by Dr. Stranger. This book is all about the hula dance in Hawaii. I'm taking an ethnic literature class, and the first thing we learned about is the hula dance in Hawaii because the hula symbolizes all of Hawaiian culture, basically. It tells their stories, and it's just really deeply rooted in everything. So this just talked about the basis of hula, and it was really interesting. I don't really like the class, but like the subject was cool to learn about, so that was enjoyable. Now I'm gonna move into my books I want to read this month of March. These are all books that I'm in the middle of reading, actually, and I just want to finish. So this one is for my ethnic literature class as well, which is Make Prayers to the Raven. It's a Koyakon View of the Northern Forest by Richard K. Nelson, and this is just like not an official anthropological study, but it's about a guy who decided to go and live with the Koyakon Indians, or natives, I guess, and learn about their culture, and it's really, really cool. I'm enjoying it. I need to read a lot this weekend. Oh, I have so much homework I gotta do. But I think that I'll end up reading that this month for class. And the next book I have is The Devil in the White City by Eric Larson. I started this book, and I am like halfway through. I don't really remember exactly where I am, but I ended up just putting it down for a little while to try and focus on some other books that I liked. But I do really enjoy this. It's so interesting to learn about, for one, the World's Fair, because I honestly knew nothing about it and all the tribulations that went into it, but also one of the most prolific serial killers and the first serial killer recorded in America. So it's pretty interesting to learn about. The next book I have is Wind Witch by Susan Dennard. I've been reading this book for a little while, and it is really good. It's the second book to the Truth Witch series, which is about these two girls who are friends, and I forgot what it's called, but they're like connected. One of them's a Truth Witch, which means she knows when someone is lying, which is a very, very rare form of witch, and it only happens once every 100 years. So she has to remain in hiding because if people found out she exists, she'd be taken by like different kingdoms and used or killed. And then her sister witch, who is a thread witch, and they're able to see the threads of people, which is like the emotional connections people have with each other, which is really cool, and she can kind of manipulate those threads. And they end up getting involved in a big plot line when her truth witchery is discovered, and they're just trying to escape from that. And this one is a continuation of that one, obviously, and it's really, really good. I just don't ever want to pick it up, even though when I'm reading it, I love it. It's a problem I've been having with books. I'm thinking about putting it down, but I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to make myself power through this one, and if like the next book I read I also feel the same way about, I'm going to keep looking until I find a book I really want to read, just so I can get through my problems. The next book I want to finish this month is The Secret History of Witches by Louis Morgan. I only read this once, and there's 5 parts in the book because there's 5 different stories, and I read the entire first part. I just haven't continued with it because I started reading Truth Witch because I started reading Wind Witch because I really wanted to do it, even though that didn't go well. But this is a family saga of 5 generations of witches, and they're all really, really interesting. It's just kind of what it's like to live like in a time of like prosecution and stuff, and I'm thinking as times change, so will like the dramas that go with each witch. Like everyone has a different power for one, and they all have different like life stories, so that's really good. And then the last book I want to finish is an audiobook I'm currently reading, which is What Should Be Wild by Julia Fine. I am like a third of the way into it, and it's really good. It's not really good, it's interesting though. It's hard to describe. It also actually kind of has witches. I wonder if I can just read the description to you guys. I closed out of it though. But it's about this girl who is stuck in her own house basically, because when she touches things, like any living thing, even like the wood floor or another person, she kills it, but she can also bring stuff back to life. So her dad is a scientist and he's just like researching into her power, but she can't live a normal life and that's all she wants to do. And at the same time, it's telling stories of other females in her family line because they all appear to have some sort of, I wouldn't even say power, but there's something connecting them to this woods that's in their backyard that their house was built in. And at the same time, you're hearing those stories, but they're also alive in present time because of the woods. It's really weird. I've enjoyed it more and more. It just also kind of like, what is going on? But I think it's starting to get really good, so I'm a little excited. But that's what I have for you guys. I hope you enjoyed. Please tell me in the comments down below what books you're planning on reading this month and any good books you've read recently. Maybe I'll get inspired to read something. And I'll see you all in the next one. Bye-bye!